She had been admiring the empty space on her wall for weeks, imagining all the books and trinkets she could display on a new shelf. But she didn't know the first thing about putting one up. She had always been the type to rely on herself and not ask for help, but this task seemed too daunting for her to tackle alone. It was a warm summer evening, and she was feeling particularly adventurous. So she decided to call him and ask for his help with putting up a new shelf in her living room. She knew he was handy and had always admired his skills, but she had never had the courage to ask for his help before. As she dialed his number, her heart raced with anticipation and a hint of nervousness. When he answered, she took a deep breath and asked if he would be willing to come over and help her. He hesitated for a moment, but then agreed and said he would be there in an hour. She couldn't believe it, he had said yes. She spent the next hour tidying up her living room and preparing for his arrival. Her mind filled with thoughts of him and the possibilities of what could happen that night. As she heard his car pull up outside, she quickly checked her appearance in the mirror one last time and made sure that everything was in order. She opened the door with a smile, her heart beating faster as she saw him standing there, holding a toolbox in one hand and a bouquet of flowers in the other. She couldn't help but feel a flutter of butterflies in her stomach as he stepped inside and greeted her with a warm smile. She led him to the living room where the shelf was supposed to go, and as they started working together, she couldn't help but feel a sense of ease and comfort around him. He was easy to talk to and had a great sense of humor. They went to work on the shelf together, but all she could think about was the way his hand brushed hers as they worked, and the way his eyes kept lingering on her. By the time they finished the shelf, she knew she had to tell him how she felt. As he was leaving, she turned to him and said, "I've always had feelings for you. And I just wanted to tell you that I think you're amazing." He looked at her with a look of surprise and then a smile spread across his face. "I've had feelings for you too. I just didn't know if you felt the same way." She was surprised and happy at the same time, as she never expected him to feel the same way. Her heart was pounding with excitement and she couldn't believe that this moment was finally happening. She had always imagined what it would be like to be with him, and now that it was happening, she couldn't be happier. She felt like she was on cloud nine, and she couldn't stop smiling. She had finally taken a chance and it had paid off. He slowly approached her, his eyes locked onto hers, and she could feel her heart racing with anticipation. She couldn't believe that this moment was finally happening and she couldn't wait to see what he would do next. As he got closer, she could feel the warmth of his breath on her face and she couldn't help but feel a shiver of excitement run down her spine. He whispered in her ear, his voice low and husky, "I've always had feelings for you and I couldn't wait any longer to tell you." And she felt her heart skip a beat. She turned to face him, her eyes wide with surprise and happiness, and he leaned in closer, his lips inches away from hers. She closed her eyes and let herself be fully immersed in the moment, and then he pressed his lips to hers. And she felt a surge of electricity run through her body. She wrapped her arms around him and kissed him back, her heart filled with happiness and love. This was the moment she had been waiting for, and she knew that their story was just beginning. The kiss was like nothing she had ever experienced before. It was soft, yet passionate, and she felt like she was melting in his arms. His lips were warm and gentle, and as they moved against hers, she could feel the intensity of his emotions. She felt like she was in a dream, and she never wanted it to end. She was lost in the moment and she couldn't get enough of him. He was like a breath of fresh air, and she felt like she had finally found her soulmate. After such a tender kiss, they couldn't help but stare into each other's eyes, their faces beaming with happiness and love. They talked about how they had always felt this way about each other but never had the courage to express it. They laughed and smiled, reminiscing about old memories and how they had always been drawn to each other. He told her how he had always admired her strength and her beauty, and how he had always been too afraid to tell her. She told him how she had always been drawn to his sense of humor and his kind heart, and how she had always hoped that he felt the same way about her. They talked about their future together and how they couldn't wait to see what the future held for them. They talked about their dreams and aspirations, and how they wanted to build a life together. As the conversation came to an end and the sun began to set, she couldn't help but feel a sense of longing to spend more time with him. She knew that she didn't want the night to end just yet, and she couldn't bear the thought of saying
goodbye.
So, she mustered up the courage and offered to stay the night with her. She suggested they could watch a movie together or cook dinner, anything to prolong the time they spent together. He looked at her with a look of surprise, but then a smile spread across his face and he agreed, saying he couldn't think of anything he would rather do. They spent the rest of the evening together, cuddled up on the couch, watching a movie and laughing. They shared stories and jokes and talked about their future plans. She felt like she was living in a dream, and she never wanted it to end. As the night went on, they both felt more and more comfortable with each other. They were both at ease, and it felt like they had known each other for a lifetime. They spent hours talking, laughing, and just enjoying each other's company. They felt like they were the only two people in the world, and nothing else mattered. They didn't need to put on a show or pretend to be someone else. They were just themselves, and it felt perfect. For both of them, being loved, feeling and sharing care was of paramount importance. They knew that in order to have a successful relationship, they needed to be able to trust and rely on each other. Love was not just a feeling, but it was a commitment to be there for each other, through the good and the bad. Caring for each other was not just about physical touch, but also about emotional support, being there for each other, and being willing to go the extra mile for the other person. They knew that as long as they had each other, they could accomplish anything, and they were excited to start their journey together. Asking for help with a shelf turned out to be the most incredible and life-changing decision for both of them. It was a small and simple request, but it ended up opening the door to a world of possibilities. It was the moment that sparked the beginning of an incredible love story. They never knew that something as simple as a shelf could bring them together and change their lives forever. It was the moment that they took a chance on each other and started their journey of love, trust, and commitment. It was the moment that they both realized that love can come from the most unexpected places, and that sometimes all it takes is a small step to change your life. They both knew that they would never be the same again, and that they would always be grateful for that shelf.